Hey friend, welcome to the Halfway to Dead podcast. I'm your host, Jen Lovell. Listen, you and I have reached that age where we are done with the bullshit. We know that midlife is our chance to flip the script and experience life on our own terms. It's time to reconnect with our higher selves and reclaim our inner peace. Are you ready with an open heart and an open mind? Awesome, you're in the right place. Hop in and ride shotgun with me on this midlife spiritual journey. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming back and listening. I appreciate you guys. So if you haven't hit that subscribe or follow button on whatever app you're listening to me right now on, I would love if you would do that. And if you have time to click those 5 stars, that's helpful too, because it helps everybody to find our podcast and it just expands our tribe a little bigger. So I would appreciate it. Thank you. Today I interviewed Kimberley Roberts. Kimberley is a reflexology therapist, a yin yoga teacher, and the founder of the Soulful Yin brand. She is here on a journey to help thousands of women in transforming their body, mind, and souls. Her mantra is, you're here to create that yinning at life vibe. Get it? Yinning, yin yoga, in your best health. Okay, so I'm going to have everything in the show notes. She's got her own podcast too called Yinning at Life. So check that out. Everything's in her link to her website. It's set up really well. She's got her own app. Even, you guys. Okay. So in this episode, Kimberley talks about her spiritual journey, which includes being married to someone who struggled with addiction and his subsequent infidelities, and how some of those traumas manifested into some pretty serious physical ailments. So because listen, the doctors wanted her to just start taking out some of her diseased organs, and she said, no, thank you. I have a different idea. And she's been working the steps and has been basically healing herself through these modalities. So she guides us through an introduction to yin yoga, reflexology, and we hit a little bit on the traditional Chinese medicine. These things all play an integral part in healing her mind, body, and soul. So we talk a lot about that. And we talk about how she feels more alive and balanced right now at 57 than she has ever felt. So you guys, it's never too late to start new things, heal from old traumas, and just really finish strong. So Kimberly's story is inspiring, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. So let's jump right in. Hey, Kimberley, thanks for being here today. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This is incredible. I love it.
Good. I'm so glad. I like to start out usually by kind of getting your personal spiritual journey story, what led you to where you are now, because we all have our own story. And I think it's easy for us to connect with each other when we hear that someone's been through some of the same things we have or any of that. So you can start wherever you feel like you want to. I mean, we don't start with the day you were born unless it's pertinent. You tell me whatever.
Okay. No, I don't think we need to go back quite that far,
but like where you felt like, ooh, something's changing in me, or if something happened. Yeah, let's just start there.
Okay. Well, I would say that probably my journey started when I was back in the corporate world and I was working at National Defense. Very high stress, like super high stress job. And one of my colleagues had said to me one day, I'm going to a Bikram yoga class. It's like 110 degrees on there. You sweat like crazy and you feel really good afterwards. She's like, why don't you come with me? And I looked at her and I said, are you kidding me? I'm like, I have no desire to go into a room like that. And no, I'm not in. And she's like, I'm telling you, she goes, you just have to try it. And I was like, okay, all right. I said, I'll try it. I'll try it once. I'll try anything once.
Right.
She's like, it's really good for stress. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. And she goes, like you're sitting for 10, 12 hours a day. It's really good for your body. So anyways, I went to the class and I hated it. I hated everything about it. I could just stand there and I was sweating. And back then with Bikram yoga, they had this thing where it was all carpeted. So it's like, great, I'm sweating in a room that's like the flooring is carpet. This is disgusting. And there's like literally this much space between our mats. So sweat off the person beside me, in front of me, behind me, all over me, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is gross. So anyways, I stuck with it. I did the class. And at the end, she said to me, she goes, what did you think? And I went, that sucked. I said, that just blowed fucking chunks. I can't. No. She's like, you just got to give it a try. I said, I did give it a try. She goes, you gave it one class. She goes, they're doing a 30-day challenge. I signed up. Why don't you do it with me? And I was like, am I going to get you off my back if I do it? And she said, yes. And okay, fine. I'll try. I'll do it. I'll do the 30 days. So I signed up for the 30-day challenge, hated it for the first couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden it was like, I'm actually starting to feel like better in my body. Like I'm sleeping better. I am less stressed. Like my body is less tense. Like I'm like, oh, there's something to this maybe. I kept on with it for about 2.5 years. And then I got totally bored with it because it's the same thing over and over again. I'm like, I'd like to try something different. I landed in a yin yoga class and I thought it was actually an Ashtanga class, which is very hardcore, very lower driven. So there I am. And then it's like a couple of minutes into it. And I'm like, what's going on here? We're not moving. We're just sitting here breathing in this pose. And she's talking about stuff. And I'm like, are we not supposed to get up and start moving? And then all of a sudden she cues us out of the pose and she puts us into dragon. And I'm like, dragon? What the hell? So I look around the room and these are not the typical people that come to this Ashtanga class. And she puts us into another pose. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm clearly not in the right class here, but I'm going to be respectful. I'm not going to get up and roll up my mat and leave the room. I'm going to do this class and let's just see how it rolls. At one point, she said, in the practice of yin yoga. And I was like, oh, that's what we're doing, yin yoga. Well, I don't even know what yin yoga is, but sure. All right, let's go for it.
Yep.
And so when I finally dusted off all of that and I went, okay, I'm where I'm at. This is the class. I might as well get the most out of it. I'm here for an hour and a half. And I started to settle into the poses and I started to drift away from, okay, what is supposed to be happening to what's happening with me. And all of a sudden, I'm like, there's something else happening in this practice that I don't know what the hell it is, but I kind of like it. So at the end of the class,
stirring up emotions for you? Was it stirring everything up?
Yeah, it was starting to stir up emotions and discomfort and not pain discomfort, but emotional discomfort, right? And I started having thoughts and it was like, where's that thought come from? Why am I thinking that? And then all of a sudden, now I'm pissed off. I'm irritated. What's going on? And then, we were in another pose and then all of a sudden I'm feeling like I want to cry and she's talking about opening your heart and I feel like I need a box of Kleenex.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, it was really different from anything else in terms of yoga that I had ever done. So at the end of class, I went up to her and I said, what the hell was this? And she's like, yin yoga. I was like, there were thoughts coming up from years ago that were stirring up some really unpleasant feelings in my mind and in my body. And she went, oh, you're one of the ones who's experiencing the quote unquote other side of yin yoga. I realized that I ended up in that class for a reason. Nothing ever happens by coincidence as far as I'm concerned. So I was like, I was really getting into the vibe of tuning into my thoughts and my feelings and what kind of emotions were coming up. And then I was starting to feel them release out of my body. I would feel the irritation. Like I literally would go from feeling pissed to feeling blissed.
Ooh.
So I went to the workshop and all she talked about was how our organs store emotions and that each organ has an associated emotion to it. So our liver holds anger and frustration and irritation. And our heart holds sadness and lack of luster and lack of joy. And, the spleen holds worry. And the minute she said, the spleen holds worry, I burst out into tears. And I was like, where the hell did that come from? And I realized that most of my life was spent worrying. I worried about everything. And this is starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together of my life and how my body has been holding and storing all these emotions and creating all of this dis-ease in my mind. But I was starting to have physical manifestations in my body. I was starting to have imbalances in my organs.
So when this all started happening, how old were you at this time?
I was 28.
Okay. So this started kind of early.
20 years ago.
Yeah. So like you said, everything happens for a reason. You went to the yin yoga class because You were meant to. What do you think was going on, though, in your life that brought that to you? You said you had a lot of worry. So were you just naturally a very anxious person at that time? Was something going on that you think opened you to this, or?
Well, I was married to an alcoholic.
Okay. Yep.
And for the first 10 years of our marriage, he didn't even realize he had a problem, and he was coined as like a functioning alcoholic.
Yep.
So he could still work and do all the things. But he needed to drink every day. He had come from, and myself as well, when I was in university, that's how we met. We were in the restaurant business, and in the restaurant business, it was pretty standard. You worked your shift and then we all went out afterwards to the bar and we would drink, right? That was the thing. So I never made any connection.
Yeah. Were you still in that college age of life, or is this a problem? It takes a little while to figure that out at some point.
Exactly. Okay. And he didn't realize that he had a problem. But then, of course, it started to compound and get worse. And eventually he got stopped for drinking and driving. Mm-hmm. And he was thrown in jail for the night, and he was charged, and we went to court, and it hired the really expensive lawyer and got him off, which in retrospect and hindsight, I look at it now and I wish that hadn't been the case. But part of his journey at that point was he had to go into rehabilitation. So he went into an outpatient program at the RO, at the Royal Ottawa, and he ended up being sober for 8 years while still working in the restaurant business. He just he did it. He quit. And I thought, okay, I don't have anything to worry about anymore. He's quote unquote cured, right? Which it doesn't happen.
Cured, yeah.
And the alcoholism came back, and he was never able to get past it. And it just progressively got worse and worse. Mm-hmm. He was in and out of rehab 6 or 7 times. And during that whole time, here I am. I'm trying to function. I'm trying not to worry. The only thing that's literally keeping me sane is my yin yoga practice. Yeah. It literally, when I say it saved my life, it literally saved my fucking life.
I believe it. Okay. So, all right. So you're working through the worry, and it's helping with that. And then you're starting to connect like actual physical ailments with what was emotionally going on with you. So you said the spleen. So this is all part of yin yoga, right? Explain yin yoga to all of us. For all of us out here who just are not familiar with it at all, give us a nice explanation and what the difference is. And like you said, just a flow, a vinyasa, ashtanga, like what's different about it?
Okay. So yin is a passive practice. So you're not moving around a lot, like in standing up and stuff and transitioning from one pose to another. There's a lot of stillness. So you hold a pose and you're propped up. So you use, blocks and straps and blankets, bolsters, whatever you have. Mm-hmm. And you prop yourself into a pose that's either seated, laying on your belly, maybe you're laying on your back or your side. And you hold it from anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
And the initial response in the body is to start to layer out and lengthen out connective tissue and fascia so that, you become more flexible.
Okay.
And your body is less tense. Your mind is a lot calmer.
So this is less cardio. You're not sweating. You're not up and down and up and down. You're holding poses longer in a comfortable way. So it's probably very helpful for like our aging joints, I would assume, keeping some of our flexibility as we get older. Is that what it really kind of focuses on?
It does, depending on your focus as the teacher. So I don't negate the fact that there's a stretch happening, that joint and ligament is being stimulated in a really healthy way. Like, I get all of that. We live in a Western world and we sit a lot and our bodies get really tight. We get really stressed out. So I understand that aspect of it. I understand the meditative aspect of it, of just focusing on your breath while you hold a pose. Mm-hmm. But for me, from the very first yin class I ever took, I was not remotely interested in the fact that I was stretching out an area of my body. I didn't give a fuck about that. All
Okay.
I cared about was, oh my God, emotions are coming up and somehow my body is letting go of them. And now I'm feeling better mentally and emotionally.
So this was therapy for you. This was your therapy.
Absolutely. It was my therapy. But back then I didn't really make the connection that that's what I was thinking. It was therapy. I just thought, okay, well, I feel better.
Yeah.
As years progressed, I started to, like things with my husband got even worse and worse. And eventually I ended up leaving him and I just couldn't do it anymore. And he wasn't getting any better. And I was only declining in my own health. And sadly, even his psychiatrist at the Royal Ottawa said, sometimes some people just, their demons are so severe that they just don't heal in this lifetime. And he said, I'm sorry. He's like, I really think that that's the case for your husband. And I was like, okay. And then I found out later on that he was having an affair with a fellow addict who was also in rehab with him at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's when I was like, I'm fucking done. I'm out. I'm out of this marriage.
Because you know what? You can only make decisions for yourself. And you realize, listen, I can't change this man. He's going to do what he's going to do. And your paths just didn't align anymore, it sounds like. It was time. It was time.
No, I was growing. I was healing and he was going in the opposite direction. And while I completely understood and I empathized with his past as a child, and I understand why he turned to alcohol as an addiction to cope. And quite frankly, I wouldn't wish his childhood trauma on anybody. But the reality is that we all have trauma. Nobody lives this life trauma free. And it's our responsibility to step up and to do the work, as painful as it is. And he just wasn't ready. And so I chose to leave and landed in this condo that I'm living in. And I kept using yin yoga as my therapy to heal all the emotions that came up. I went through those 7 stages of grieving. Like there was so much anger. I will tell you, Jen, I spent years here. Of the 9 years that I've been here, I probably spent a good 5 years just being angry all the time. And I wasn't outwardly angry to people, but a lot of my energy was cast out in a very angry way, in a very frustrated way. And it wasn't until literally 2022 when I had a massive health diagnosis, a massive health crisis, that I really put everything together. I looked at my past with my husband and everything that, the 20 years of marriage that we were in together. I layered on the fact that I was holding on to all these emotions in my body. And although I was clearing them out, the piece that was missing for me was the mindset of really understanding how my thoughts were creating feelings and the feelings were creating emotions and the emotions were in my body. And although I knew yin was helping me release the emotions, I wasn't going backwards to the starting point, which is the thoughts. So the thoughts were still really negative and heavy. And when I put all of that together, I realized the day I got my diagnosis, I was diagnosed with a massive uterine fibroid that was 12 centimeters. Like we're talking a huge thing growing in my uterus, 6 liver cysts and an enlarged gallbladder lining. And when I got diagnosed with all of that, I mean, I knew there was something wrong in the uterine area because I could see like I was very distended and I looked almost like I was pregnant. And I'm like, okay, there's something growing in there and it's not a baby. And when I finally got the diagnosis, that part I wasn't overly surprised about. But then, the doctor said to me, but there's more than just a fibroid. And I'm like, what do you mean there's more? And that's where he told me about the cysts and the gallbladder. And then right away, I was like, oh my God, all the years of frustration, bitterness, anger, rage, resentment, which is all what we hold in the liver and the bitterness, Jen. Like I had so much bitterness towards life and towards people and towards him.
Mm.
and that's held in the gallbladder. And I was like, oh my God, like no wonder all of this manifestation in my body happened. I wasn't really going back and connecting my thoughts to my emotions.
Yeah.
And that's really when my journey started.
So you'd been doing the yin yoga. So you'd been doing some of that. Then you still got this diagnosis and realized, ooh, you stored a lot of trauma in your body. You had stored it in certain areas. So then is that when you said your journey really started? So you kind of kicked everything up a notch? Is that what happened? Because you were already doing the yin yoga. So you continued with that and you probably added in, I mean, I'm sure you did what the doctors told you needed to do, right? But also, did you start to blend that with more homeopathic, more, Chinese medicine, other things? Is that when that also enter for you?
Well, I had already been a practicing reflexology therapist for 13 years.
Okay.
So I started blending in that quite some time ago. That was more just for general health and improvement of, related areas of my body, because reflexology works on that premise that we have reflex points in our feet that link to everything in our body. And it's kind of like these little garden hoses running from our feet up until all our systems, our organs, physical body parts. And so I use that for healing. But when I got my diagnosis, my doctor said to me, well, this is all treatable and fixable. Don't worry about it. And I said, well, what are we doing? He says, well, you're not having any kids, so we'll just take out your uterus. And I was like, I'm fucking taking out my uterus, but you're not going to have kids. Who cares? Oh, I'm like, I know enough about, and this is what I said to a Western doctor. I said, I know enough about traditional Chinese medicine to know that every organ in your body is there for a reason. There is no way you're taking out my uterus. He's like, well, that's the only way. The fibroid's too big. It would be too complicated of a surgery. That's the only way out. And he went, and we'll take out your gallbladder because you don't need it. And I was like,
oh, they were just going to start taking all the parts out. Yeah.
And then he said, he goes, you're lucky. He says, all the liver cysts are all in a general one area of your liver. So we'll just do a liver dissection.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, these are some big surgeries. Yeah.
Well, and he says to me, we can do this all at once. We'll just get, 3 different surgeons in.
Okay.
And I went, and we're in the pandemic at this point, right?
Jeez.
So we already know what's going on in the medical industry and in the hospitals. I looked at him and I said, Dr. McIsaac, I said, I am so grateful that, you got me in for an ultrasound really quick. You got me this diagnosis. I'm so grateful, but I've got it from here. Thank you very much. And I got up and I walked out. I got into my car. I started bawling my eyes out because the initial shock of everything was kind of like, all right, I'm a little overwhelmed here.
Yeah, a lot overwhelmed, probably.
Very overwhelmed. And then I went, wait a minute, I've got my tools. So I picked up the phone and I called a fellow colleague that I had been working with. I had been working with cancer patients at the Ottawa Integrative Cancer Center for about 7 years doing reflexology.
Okay.
And he's a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. It doesn't get more Chinese medicine than this guy.
Okay,
and
perfect.
So I called him and I said, well, I'm sitting in my car right now. I just got this diagnosis. This is everything that's happening. And I said, I need to see you. I said, I know that we're colleagues. I know you have a private practice. Is there any way you would see me in your private practice? Because I understand, conflict of interest, working with colleagues. It's not good to mix the business with the personal in the context of working in the hospital together.
Okay.
And he said, yes, you got a lot going on. Absolutely. I'll see you. So that's when my journey with traditional Chinese medicine really, really amped up. I knew a little bit before.
Yeah.
But he taught me a lot. And so he taught me a lot about how to, I studied acupressure with him. Even though he does acupuncture, I started acupressure with him. I learned about changes to make with your diet, Chinese ways of living life from a more meditative approach, and just little techniques, when you tap here on your body and this helps with that. And, he kind of just took me under his wing as an understudy and said, yes, I'm going to help you along this journey. But at one point, you're going to get to a place in your own journey where you're going to be able to just do the rest of this yourself. And I went, okay, all right. I'm not so sure about that, Joe, but I'm going to take you for it and I'm going to believe you. But right now I was in a major, major health crisis at that point and everything was falling apart. So I was like, okay, I'm going to trust you. And I did all the lovely Chinese herbs that just tasted disgusting,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
they helped me heal. And I was probably about 7 months in, he said to me, all right, you got a choice now. You can continue seeing me if you want, but you got all the tools. You can use your yin yoga practice. You can use the acupressure that you've learned. You don't need the Chinese herbs. You need to, keep your diet the way it was before, eating from a more traditional Chinese medicine approach, being really, really careful with the thoughts and what kind of feelings. And that they're creating emotions in your body. And how all of this started because Chinese medicine believes that every physical manifestation of illness in our body comes from something emotional.
Okay. I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah. Not the other way around. We often think the physical creates the emotional, but from a Western medicine approach, they see it that way. But from traditional Chinese medicine, like TCM, they're always like the root of the illness is always something emotional.
Okay. All right. So you did all of this and then what happened to your health? Did it get better? Did you get more scans? What happened?
I started going for ultrasounds. My doctor was sending me for ultrasounds every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And after the first 3 months, I had my first ultrasound and the fibroid had already shrunk 2 centimeters, which
Okay.
my doctor, when he was looking at the ultrasound results, he was like, I don't know what kind of magic you're doing. Whatever you're doing, I'm a proponent of because I expected after 3 months that nothing would have changed with you because you decided you didn't want to have anything removed out of your body. So one of the liver cysts, so I had 6 liver cysts, one of them was already dissolved and the other 5 were starting to shrink. And the lining of my gallbladder was starting to go back to its normal width, which he had told me, he goes, in 50 years of practicing medicine, I've never seen a gallbladder lining shrink. It never does. He's like, I don't know what you're doing, but I want to know. So I told him what I was doing. And he just looked at me and said, keep doing what you're doing because it's working.
Yeah. If it's working, it's
So I'm still on that journey of shrinking and dissolving everything. But I'll tell you, Jen, that the major work in all of this has been my mindset, like transforming my mindset into believing that I can heal all of this because I have the tools to heal.
It is. I feel like we all were born with the tools. We were made to heal ourselves and given everything on this earth to help do that, right? Like you said, the herbs, the different practices, we just have all lost touch with these things. Because I think way back in the day, probably these were things that used to get passed down generationally, right? All these different modalities. And then somewhere it got lost, especially here in the Western world. It just got lost and we don't hand these kind of things down to future generations anymore. So I'm glad it's all starting to come back now. Okay. So you're still on the journey now. Everything's still shrinking.
I'm still on the journey now.
But you have had no new health things pop up. You've got everything under control for the most part. Yeah, that's the plan anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. Something will always come. That's my theory. Yeah. Always just be ready. So let's talk a little bit about each of these components that you've used. So we talked a little bit about the yin yoga, and that's basically helped you because of these poses that help you release those emotions. Is that right? Is that the key to how the yin yoga is helping heal your health?
Well, what it does is it allows you to create the awareness of the thoughts that you're thinking that are creating feelings that are rippling into an emotion. So the stillness in the pose gives you the opportunity to kind of, what I say to my students all the time is turn the light bulb on over your head, right? Because we're walking around living unconscious, often totally unaware of our thoughts, right? We have over 70,000 thoughts in a day.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, our brain can't process all those thoughts, but the repetitive ones are the ones that can create damage. They're the ones that can do the real harm. And in yin, it's really helped me to think, oh, that thought again? I'm thinking that again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and how is that making me feel? Not great. It's either making me feel angry or sad or worried or fearful. And
As you're,
that really,
yeah. I'm just thinking, so as you're holding each pose, you're essentially meditating at the same time because you're clearing your mind. You're being guided to clear your mind. And that's when those emotions can come up, right? To our conscious. Is that what you're saying? And then once they come into our conscious and we realize, okay, I'm thinking about this way too much and it's come up. How do we get rid of that then?
You know what? It's called the better feeling thought. That's what I use.
So you got to kind of script.
Yeah, like I'll be in a pose and all of a sudden say something for worry comes up because, worry has been one of my things that I struggled with. So I'll be in a pose and I'll start to worry, I'll have a thought that worries me. It's like, oh God, well, what about this? Like, I might be late for this appointment if I keep doing what I'm doing. Or, you know what? The end of the month is coming and I've got a lot of bills. And where's all that money going to come from to pay all of this? Worrying is just projecting out to the future, right?
Right.
Like we're projecting out what hasn't even happened. And so I started to catch myself going, why am I worrying about that? Do I have any reason in this specific moment to worry about that?
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. So since I don't have to worry about something that's not even happening in the first place, I'm going to think about something else, something that allows me to move up the emotional scale. So instead of feeling worried, I might think, well, you know what? That actually hasn't happened. And I've had these thoughts before, and you know what? They've actually never translated into what my mind is thinking is going to happen.
Yeah.
So, why do I worry about that? Because I've worried about it before, but nothing bad ever happened. So why am I worrying now? No, I'm not going to worry. I'm actually going to feel good about this. And it's not a 180. So say you're really scared and fearful. It's not like turning yourself right over to being 100% grateful and feeling abundant and safe and secure, right? We just don't shift emotionally that quickly from literally one end of the spectrum to the other end, right?
Right. Because that sounds great, but that's hard to do. Yeah.
It's very hard to do. And quite frankly, if you are really scared in the moment, it is really hard to turn that completely 100% around. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, and I'm grateful and everything is perfect in my life. Well, you could still be grateful, but there still might be something that's causing the fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you have to work at. So for me, financial has been a really big part of my fear since living here on my own, because there's nobody else supporting me but me. And when the pandemic hit, let me tell you, there was a lot of fear because here I am. I'm trying to run my own reflexology business. At that point, I was teaching yoga in studios, but the studios all closed.
Yep.
So I was kind of like forced to move into the online space, which in retrospect was actually the best thing that ever happened. But there was a lot of fear.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. I think a lot of people went through a lot with this whole pandemic. It opened up a lot of cans of worms. Yep.
It did, but it also opened up a lot of opportunities.
Yep. Is yin yoga a lot like you hear about somatic exercises, somatic stretches? Is that the same thing or no?
No, it's not necessarily the same thing. Somatic, there's a little bit more movement to it depending on the teacher.
Okay.
But there is a similarity in the sense that it's about releasing what your body is holding on to.
Yeah.
Right.
So tell me really briefly, just so people have an idea, tell me which organs are associated with which emotions. Mm-hmm. So if someone right now is struggling with a particular, I don't know, whatever, where will it land in their body?
Okay. So I love this discussion because this is actually one of my favorite episodes that I recorded on my own podcast. It was about the link between emotions and our organs, because I'll tell you, it's so cool. So each one of our organs, we have a yin organ and we have a yang organ. So everything in life is yin and yang, right? We're made up of yin and yang.
Okay.
So each organ there's a yin organ and then there's a paired organ, a yang organ that goes with it. So if we start with the liver and the gallbladder are connected together. So the yin organ is the liver and the gallbladder is the yang organ. So yin being the more passive organ, not necessarily in anatomical function, but
in energy.
The yang organ is the more active one. Okay. And so with our liver and our gallbladder, we hold irritation, frustration, anger, resentment, rage, bitterness. So that's what we hold there. And the interesting thing about the liver is it's kind of like the commanding general of all of our organs. So although it holds those primary emotions, it's always filtering out all the other emotions we have. It has 600 functions every day, right? So it's always filtering and detoxing.
It's technically, yeah, our liver detoxes our body.
Detoxes all of our thoughts.
Oh, okay. Yep. So it all lands in the area.
So everything goes through the liver.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Our kidneys, which are considered our foundational organs in Chinese medicine. So they're our longevity, our foundation, our vitality. They're our birth organs. They're the ones that determine how long we live on this planet. They're part of our reproductive system, is part of our kidney organ system as well. And it's paired with the bladder. And it holds fear and insecurity.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will tell you, during the pandemic, like my kidneys and my bladder, I could feel the distension and pain in those organs because, like everybody else, everybody was scared, right? Because nobody knew what the hell was going on. And we hadn't been in a pandemic situation before this, right?
Those were crazy times. That was ridiculous. That was a lot.
Oh, I know.
So
so that's what happens with the kidney and the bladder. Now the spleen is paired with the stomach. And the interesting thing is the spleen in Chinese medicine is very much more about absorbing and digesting life as opposed to absorbing and digesting food. Okay. Although it does do that, it takes the nutrients from the food we eat and it converts it into a qi or an energy that is moved up into the body and dispersed everywhere else. But it holds worry and nervousness and obsession and that sort of compulsive people who have, ADHD or obsessive compulsive disorders. That energy is held in the spleen.
In the spleen. Okay.
In the spleen. Yeah. The big one being worry, right? So yeah. And then we have, now these two are interesting because for a lot of people, it doesn't make sense, but everything is different in Chinese medicine versus Western. So your heart is associated with your small intestines.
Okay.
Now, anatomically, they have very different functions, right? Like,
yeah, I wouldn't have thought that. Yeah.
Pumps, keeps you alive.
The blood.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. Moves blood around. Whereas your small intestine absorbs, your food, the rest of digestive processes are done in your small intestine. But energetically, these two organs work together and they hold sadness. They hold lack of joy or lack of luster, lack of purpose. They also hold that feeling of being disconnected with yourself, but also with life, right? Like some people very much disassociate from life and from people and get very introverted. So that's where we hold those energies. And then your lungs are associated with your large intestines. So they're the energy of bringing in, but also releasing out, right?
Okay, that makes
like if you think about, your lungs bring in, like we draw in air and then we release carbon dioxide, right?
Yep, and then our colon releases all of our waste. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they hold grief, loss, and sorrow.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so, and it's really cool because in my journey of when I worked with cancer patients at the OICC, a lot of them would tell me their personal story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of them, there was some emotional dis-ease that eventually created physical manifestations. And I truly believe, I used to see lung cancer patients where, there was so much grief and so much loss and so much sorrow that they were holding in their lungs, and they ended up with lung disease, right? And lung cancer. And I mean, Western medicine will always debate on that. And they'll say, no, like they're just genetically predispositioned or they smoke too much. Well, I had so many cancer patients with lung cancer that never smoked a cigarette
Yeah.
in their day or were never even exposed to cigarette smoke. Right.
Yeah.
So
do you feel like if someone told, like back when you were at the cancer center, that if someone told you kind of their story and where their traumas lied and all those things, could you almost predict what area of their body they had their illness? Or did they correlate like that?
I knew what their illness was. I would look at their file and I would see what type of cancer they had. But then when they would start to get comfortable being in treatment with me, that's when they would start to open up and tell me their story. And some of them, it depended on the person. If they opened up the door and talked about emotions, then I was totally all over it.
Yeah.
But some of them never made the connection between the emotional piece and the physical manifestation, but they would tell me their story. And in the back of my mind, I'd be going, yeah, that makes sense why they had, pancreatic cancer, which is associated with the spleen. And the spleen is worry, right? Or, they had reproductive, like a lot of uterine, ovarian cancers. There was a lot of fear, right? And, the way that they were brought up and not enough love from parents. And, whenever they would tell me their story, I would always be able to understand, like, yeah, I can see why it was that type of cancer.
Yeah. Okay. So we got the yin yoga going. We've got all these organs that attach with our emotions in Chinese medicine. And then you do the reflexology. So all these organs have this going on. And then what connects that all? Like, so reflexology, I always just think of the feet, but it's more than the feet.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's also in the hands and in your ears as well. We have reflex points. It originally decades and centuries ago, it started in the feet, right?
Okay.
And then eventually they realized that there were the same reflex points in the hands. They're just closer together because your hands are smaller than your feet.
Okay.
And then they also realized that they were in the ears as well. And then ear reflexology isn't that common in the Western world. It very much is. When people think of reflexology, they think of foot reflexology first before, and then they might think of hand reflexology, but ear reflexology, not so much. You'll see more of the Asian culture that'll be like, oh yeah, no, I know about ear reflexology because there's also ear acupressure points as well, right? And there's acupressure points in the hands and in the feet. So, but I practice foot reflexology.
Okay. So all of our organs connect to a certain place in our feet. And then that's where you work on those, right? You're rubbing them. What else?
I'm pressing on specific pressure, we call them reflex points. So short for reflexology points. And basically what I'm doing is I'm pressing on a point, like I use my thumbs and my fingers. And when I press on it, it's kind of turning the tap on a hose, where you see how water flows through a hose.
Okay.
Well, this is like I'm getting the blood to flow through the nerve ending. It starts at the tip of the nerve ending, which is the tip of the reflex point. And say I'm working, like, for example, let's just say the liver. Say someone's coming to me because they want to improve liver health.
Okay.
So although there's many points that I'm pressing on, the area that I'm going to focus on is liver. So there's specific points that I would press on. And basically that's starting to improve the blood circulation up into that area of the body, kind of flushing out all the toxins and whatever else is in there that's not supposed to be in there, and improving the function of the organ itself.
Yeah.
Now, it could also, sometimes people come to see me because they have a frozen shoulder. So I'm looking to improve blood flow and improve the function of the shoulder so they can move it around. I rarely get people that come to see me for feet stuff.
Okay. Yeah. It's everything else in your body that connects in our feet.
Yeah.
Yes. So do you think this is totally separate, but do you feel like that is a good reason why we need to do grounding and earthing too? Like our feet to the earth, because everything starts in our feet. So would that be another good reason why we should try and kick our shoes off every once in a while or do some grounding outside? Does that link with reflexology kind of?
Absolutely. I used to do grounding outside, but in the wintertime, I'm not going to go stand outside in the freezing cold. No.
Right.
So I actually have a grounding mat. And I will tell you, Jen, like it is a game changer for inflammation. I will tell you that, of 15 years of practicing reflexology, my hands now start to get a little bit tired at the end of doing several treatments in a day. So what I do is I will literally put my hands on my grounding mat.
Perfect.
And I will just let them just pick up the energy of the electrons that are in the mat. And I can feel the vibration underneath my hands. And I use it on my feet. I even have a grounding bed sheet that I sleep on at night.
Mine too. I have the grounding bed.
And oh my God, I will tell you, like the inflammation that it releases, especially in my hands, it's a game changer for me.
Anyway.
Like in terms of being able to still do reflexology. I highly recommend grounding mats for anybody.
Okay. So we've got the reflexology. We've been doing the yin, the reflexology, and then let's talk a little bit about the basis behind if people want to start researching the traditional Chinese medicine. What's a good place to start if your mind's just starting to open to this? Whether you have an illness right now, because we always talk about bringing up these emotions, doing the work, releasing things just to better our health, but also if we want to start meshing in some of this traditional Chinese medicine with our Western med, we're trying to transition a little bit. What's a good starting place for us, do you think?
That's a really good question. I would have to say probably for the majority of people, especially if they don't have any real context of, Eastern medicine and they've very much been exposed to Western medicine only.
Yes.
I would say yin yoga is a great place to start.
Okay. Because you mentioned how the basis for Chinese medicine is, like you said, the balance of the opposites, the yin and the yang, right? Is that kind of the basis?
Yeah. And clearing out blockages that your body is holding and that your energy is holding. Like our whole body is made up of energy and our energy can get blocked.
Is that what they say? Our chi. Is that
our chi? Yeah.
Okay.
Our chi. Yeah.
And
so our chi can get blocked.
Okay. Because there's energy pathways all over our body. And we're not talking about chakras right now. We're talking about key energy paths that go all over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And through our meridian system.
Through the meridian system. So this is where sometimes the practices, like you said, the acupressure, acupuncture, different things like this help open that up. Reflexology does that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reflexology does it in a slightly different way. So reflexology is working more through the nerves in the body.
Okay.
Whereas acupressure and acupuncture and yin are working more through the meridian system, the energetic meridian system in our body. So they are different, but they can both address physical, mental, and emotional blockages. Just reflexology, as it improves the function of an organ, we already know that our body holds emotions in our organs. So if I'm improving the anatomical function of an organ through reflexology, then I know that on an energetic level, an emotional level, there is going to be a compound ripple effect with that.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So we're clearing our pathways. And then it's also based on the 5 elements, right? These are the things I think of when I think of Chinese medicine, the 5 elements and how those work into our lives. And then knowing those, is that how we decide what dietary changes we need to make?
Well, that's where if you're really looking to make the dietary changes in that, I would say finding a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner is the way to go. If if you want to get really serious about it, because Chinese medicine is not straightforward. It is very complex.
Yeah.
And so you can learn if you find a yin yoga teacher who teaches yin from that more Eastern approach and less so from the Western approach, then you can start to do some of your own healing that way.
Okay.
And then as things kind of come up and you're starting to realize maybe, you need a little bit more support, that's where finding a TCM doctor or TCM practitioner where, they might have to start to incorporate herbs in helping you. And then the acupuncture as well. Like acupuncture and acupressure are definitely much stronger vehicles for processing and releasing blockages. Yin is a little bit more subtle because yin is done through the long held stretch.
Okay.
Whereas with acupuncture or acupressure, you're literally puncturing or pressing on a point, right? So it is more powerful. Yin is a little bit more subtle, but nevertheless,
the results end up in the same area. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, because when you were talking about herbal supplements and herbs, okay, you can't just run over to like the health food store and walk in and say, hey, I'm looking for some Chinese herbs. No, that's not how this works. No, this isn't.
No, it doesn't. And it doesn't also work by going to Amazon and going, oh, yeah, okay. My liver's not working so great, so I'm just going to take this liver tonic that, some guy is selling on Amazon.
Right. No, that's not how this works. Yeah, you need to find something.
No,
legit.
that's not how it works.
No.
But a lot of people think it is.
Oh, sure. Isn't everything on Amazon? No, just kidding. I think the whole world's like,
pretty much.
It is sometimes, but no, you need to find a practitioner probably that really knows what they're talking about for you. Because like you said, it's complicated. It's not just, I'm having liver problems. What do I do? There's the emotional aspect. We got to connect our mind, body, spirit to figure this whole thing out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's where all these practices come in really well. Oh my goodness. I love it. So this is the tip of the iceberg on some of this stuff, you guys, because you can go really deep into any facet of this. But I wanted everybody to kind of hear your story and things that have been helping you in case they want to start dipping their toe into it. So it sounds like the best place to start on this healing type journey for your emotions is the yin yoga. And again, you can do that. And you're right. What did come out of this stupid pandemic is we're all much more connected online now to resource.
Yes.
I don't have a particular studio in my area that has yin yoga classes that I know about, right? Or yoga nidra, some of these other little, kundalini. There's just so many different kinds. And sometimes it's hard to find a good practitioner in your own area. So now we can go online. Okay. So like Kimberly tell us about your online program. What do you offer?
I have my own app that I actually launched the Soulful Yin app. So, you can go to the App Store, or you can go to the Play Store, and you can download my app, the Soulful Yin app. And basically, it's all of, my yin yoga classes are up on there. So I record classes for on demand, but I also have live stream classes a couple of times a week as well that students can actually come and practice live with me.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Or they can practice on demand. Just depends on, I have people on my app that are from all over the world. So it's really cool. So they can practice yin.
Whatever time works for you. Yeah. If you're a morning person, you could do it then. If you like things more in the evening, you can do it then. Your lunch break.
Yeah.
Whenever you can squeeze it in, right? That's what makes it really nice.
Exactly. Okay. So I've probably got over 150 practices up there now. So I've got yin yoga practices. I've got breath work, meditations. I've got, I'm starting to put up some reflexology techniques up there as well. Okay. And then I incorporate acupressure with a lot of my yin yoga classes too. So I call it more like an acu-yin type of practice where we'll do a little bit of acupressure and then we'll do some yin poses. And then I've got, like dedicated courses that people can purchase if they're not interested in having a membership on my app.
It's a monthly fee through the app. You can sign up through the app. Is that right? Okay. And then you have access to all the things, right?
Yes. I have 2 different memberships.
Oh, okay. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So I have a basic membership that gets them, like 15-minute classes, 30-minute classes. They get breath work. They get audio meditations. They get regular guided meditations with me. And then I have what I call the monthly everything unlimited plan. And so they get all that other stuff. Plus they get live stream classes. They get 60-minute classes. They get courses and series and programs that I normally sell. Okay. And they get that as part of their monthly membership as well. So it's just a little bit more access.
Okay. Yeah.
But for some people, they start off at the basic, which is like $9.99 a month. And then after a while, they're like, I really love this. I want more. And then they upgrade to the $19.99 monthly plan and they just get everything.
You can individually do your courses too, right? Like if you just wanted to dip a toe into a course, you could do that too.
Yep.
Perfect. And I'm going to have all the links in the show notes for you guys. And she's got a podcast she's doing too. So that's a good one to start listening to. And then all of her online stuff. And the app, I love this app. I'm going to have to check this out.
Mm-hmm.
Because yin yoga sounds like it's right up my alley, because
Okay, Jen.
I have the same experience you did in yoga. When the room is like 100+ degrees and I'm sweating before I begin, I'm not in the right place. I'm just going to be honest. I don't feel like I'm in the right place, because I'm thinking I'm sweating. I feel nauseous now. And now I have to keep moving my body over and over. It becomes a lot for me. So I love this idea of the yin, not because it sounds like it's lazy. I am a little lazy, but I love the sound of it because it's these held poses that are stretching. And I feel like it would help me physically with my joints and my muscles. Mm-hmm. But also I love the idea of releasing that emotion, like bringing it up and releasing it. Because I have had during yoga, I have a friend who owns a studio, and she has done some private lessons with me. And no, I've had where I just started crying. Like I was in a pose and I didn't even know why I was crying. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Why am I crying? She's like, nope, that's what happens in yoga. Sometimes you get in that position or that spot and it just starts coming up. So I totally believe in that. And so this sounds like it could be for me. Yeah.
Well, I'd love to have you on the app. Yeah, you should check it out.
Be cool. I'm going to try it. Okay, you guys. So I have everything in the show notes for her. This has just kind of been an introductory, and you guys know that then you can dive in deeper to any of this. If it's resonating with you, hearing about yin yoga, the traditional Chinese medicine, the reflexology, any of it, dive in deeper, find a practitioner in your area. Obviously, reflexology is not online because you need someone,
it's kind of hard.
Someone touching your feet and your hands and your ears. So find a local practitioner for that. But really get started on this yin yoga, because I think it could be something that could help us all on our healing journey. I think we're all on a healing journey. That's why we're here. So to feel all these stupid emotions, get them up and out. So I love that. Is there anything else you want to leave us with, Kimberly, before we say goodbye to our friends?
I just say, you know what? Even if you don't understand all of this, just be open.
Yeah.
Just be open to learning, and just let whatever comes up come up on that journey. Because like you said, we're always 1 foot in healing and 1 foot in growth, right? That's our journey. There's no final destination. Like you're always going to be learning something. I'm 57 now, and I am still like, I feel I'm really at a massive, critically amazing turning point in my life. And I don't care that it's at 57. All I care about is that it's happening now, because I don't know how long I've still got left on this planet.
Right.
So I want to make the most out of it. And some people say, oh, it's going to be too late for me to start. I'm like, it's never too late for you to start. Just start.
Get started. Heck, even if you just have an amazing 6 months or a year, who cares?
Exactly.
Let's do it. Yeah, I don't know how long I have left, so let's just write it out. That's what I say.
Totally.
Do the best we can and learn all the things we can and experience all the things we can, and until it's time to head back to the other side, right? Yeah. No.
Exactly.
It's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. This has been awesome. You're going to have to come back and dive deeper into some of these things, because we didn't.
Oh, I'd love to. Anytime, Jen. Anytime. Thanks so much for having me on the podcast.
Yeah. This is just a great dip your toe into this stuff, guys, and then dive deep into whatever really resonates with you. Then it was meant to be for you. So if you're listening today, this might be a sign. This might be something you needed to hear and something you need to start doing today. I think I'm going to. Okay. Thanks, Kimberly. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Listen, I know your time is valuable. And right now I'm feeling super grateful and totally humbled that you chose to hang out with me today. If this podcast resonates with you, could you do me a solid and hit that subscribe or follow button? That's going to help you out, because you're never going to miss an episode. And it helps me out because you're never going to miss an episode. And if you have like 30 seconds more, could you leave a 5-star rating and maybe leave a kick-ass review? Thank you so much. And I can't wait to continue our journey on the next episode. Oh, and I can't forget the fine print. The legal jargon. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We're just two friends on this journey together. And this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional. You get it. See you next time.